So we got the 345 spoilers, and it's directly continuing what had happened at the end of the previous chapter, so let me just explain that real quick. So after Izuku and Aoyama successfully lured All For One out, thinking that Aoyama was going to be delivering Izuku to him, we saw All For One use his warping quirk to bring the rest of his villain team there. But at the same time, it turns out that Monoma was able to copy Kurogiri's quirk, who was in possession of the heroes, or he used his warp gate quirk to bring all of the heroes to where Izuku and Aoyama were. So then we finally had like all of the heroes, all of the villains in one place, and they were all about to square off until out of nowhere All Might and Tsuguchi activated their plan, which is Operation Troy, and the villains were suddenly individually trapped in like these containment units. And then Monoma was instructed to activate the warp gate quirk again in order to send these containment units to different locations, and that's where we're coming to now. Chapter begins inside one of the iron cages, showing the villains confused by the fact that they are moving. Toga is desperate and asks them to break this thing as quick as possible while thinking of Deku. Keep that in mind because that's going to be like the most important aspect of this chapter, I suppose. Some of them actually manage to destroy these prisons, including Dabi, who mocks them by saying that they could only hold them for 3 seconds. Shoto appears in front of him, saying that those 3 seconds are more than enough and attacks with his fire. So obviously this is like the inevitable confrontation here, but we also saw this set up in the previous chapter. Because like I said, the heroes and the villains were finally all together and facing off. Dabi was kind of like the first one to make a move because when he saw Endeavor, I guess he just snapped and he just went full-blown cremation at him and the other heroes. But Shoto came through a warp gate and protected them with like a giant ice wall. So this is kind of just like building off of that momentum. The heroes are confronting the villains that got loose and pushing them towards the portals. The plan to simultaneously push them towards the portals is successful, and we see Monoma laughing once again, saying that he is the one pulling the strings. We also see a hero very similar to Crust, both in look and in quirk, dealing with one of the generals of the Liberation Front and saying that they also have a plan to deal with Shigaraki's decay. The heroes then rush to enter the portals that have been assigned to each of them. Bakugo calls Deku, but before they can enter it together, Midoriya is pulled in by something that came from another portal. Don't worry, we're gonna find out what's going on with that soon. Fat Gum stayed behind and is tasked by All Might to arrest any villains left with his fat and protect Aoyama. He also instructs Monoma to return to where Aizawa is. The operation enters phase 2, and we see a double page showing the heroes charged with taking care of All For One. Endeavor, Hawks, Tokoyami, Kamui Woods, Pixie Bob, Tiger, and Shishido, along with many others. They are in Gunga Mountain. Endeavor says that the goo quirk used by All For One is a worse version of Kurogiri's warp gate and was used in Kamino. It can only cover short distances and cannot transport the user. The UA barrier improvements were also made with this in mind, and now All For One is getting what he deserves. So yeah, it's being revealed here that the gray goo quirk, or the warping quirk that All For One has been using, cannot transport himself. So we're led to believe here that he is trapped with the heroes and that he cannot escape from this position. And we're also getting more insight into what the heroes' overall plan is here, separating the villains and then having like an individual hero team to deal with each threat. All For One admits their plan is great, but says that splitting the heroes at a time like this is a bit risky. He wonders if bringing One For All face to face with Tomura is really a good idea. Also, he comments that Endeavor has left his youngest son in a very complicated situation. On the next page, we see Shoto facing Dabi and Kamino. Ida is also with them. The scene cuts away and we see an impressive double spread of UA, which is floating on a huge piece of land and protected by a force field. UA is now like floating on a piece of land that has like these turbine things sticking out of it that are keeping it afloat, and it also has like these pillars erected from the sides, and it has like this net type barrier thing going around it. I'm assuming that this isn't going to hold forever and it eventually kind of has to come down. Like I've been saying in these reviews, there's going to be some kind of foil coming soon. At least that just seems more likely to me, other than this just being a straightforward ending with the heroes completely dominating the villains. I mean, maybe, but probably not. Portal opens and Shigaraki is teleported there, where Best Jeanist was waiting for him. Bakugo then appears and says that there is a problem. Deku Izuku has been taken away. So I'm assuming Best Jeanist being there is just going to, wrap up Shigaraki so that he can't move, therefore he can't really use his decay quirk, which, earlier they said they have a plan for dealing with that. I guess this was it. The last page shows that Deku has been pulled by Toga and is standing next to Uraraka. Tsuyu and Gang Orca are in a place that looks like a water show stadium. Deku doesn't understand why Danger Sense hasn't activated, and Toga has a serene expression. End of chapter. So yeah, that's the big twist here. Toga, at like the last second, was able to grab Izuku and pull him into her warp gate to bring her where she is. And I'm assuming that this isn't a part of the plan, since he was supposed to be with like Bakugo and the rest of them going against Shigaraki. That's why it said All for One wonders if bringing One for All face to face with Tomura is really a good idea. So this makes me think that Toga really is acting autonomously here, and this isn't necessarily what All for One wants, although I don't really think Toga even cares about that. She's more aligned with Shigaraki and Stain, if anything. But that being said, also I guess All for One doesn't even know this is happening right now. He's still under the assumption that Izuku is with Shigaraki's group. But on top of that, Izuku's Danger Sense not activating, I guess means that there was no ill intent behind Toga's action here. It's also stated that if the user is in a crowd that has too much negativity, it causes the quirk to be overstimulated. So since they are in this warlike environment, so maybe the quirk isn't functioning the way that it should possibly. And I personally can't really see a serene expression on her face. Maybe there's like another panel showing more intention to her, but it kind of just looks like she's just looking at Izuku and Uraraka. And we all know by now that she has like a weird obsession with Izuku and Uraraka. I mean, it comes down to who she inherently is, her mental health issues on top of how her quirk works, and they kind of synergize each other, I guess. And her whole thing is her wanting to become them, which adds into like her tragic obsession with them. And of course, it all stems from her upbringing and tragic past, which is why I've always been saying she's like a victim of circumstance, because I think that her quirk plays a large part into who she is as a person, which led her to face the discrimination that she has, but also led her to perform the unfortunate actions that she did in her past as well. Now, I'm assuming that we're going to get her full character arc pretty soon, and the reveal of what her true intentions for everything is, I guess. Maybe we never will. That's also a possibility. Maybe it's always going to be ambiguous. But regardless, even if we don't get a character arc, I assume that we'll just have finality to what is going on with her story. And I assume it could possibly end with Uraraka doing her best to try and save Toga the way that Izuku is trying to save Shigaraki. Although I don't think it's going to be black and white. It's probably going to land in like some kind of gray area where both the characters and the readers aren't necessarily happy with the outcome, but maybe we'll all see that it's a necessary one. And also a couple chapters back, it was revealed that Dabi was able to get some of Twice's blood before he was transported away by Gigantomachia, and he gave that to Toga, because apparently one of the aspects of her quirk is if the person is someone close to Toga's heart, she'll be able to use their quirk by drinking their blood. And the Sad Man's Parade was name dropped by Dabi, so I'm assuming that that kind of has to come back into play, because this is like Chekhov's blood here. But let me know what you think is going to happen in the next chapter. If you liked the video, guys, please give it a like, and please subscribe if you haven't already. Have a great day. I'll see you in the next one.